Hey guys, it's Josh Packard. Today, I want to talk a little bit about James and about how there's some misconceptions in James that really cause stumbling blocks for people because of those that still believe they're under sin, and then imputing condemnation where James never ever meant any condemnation. And we kind of want to change our ideas about a few words and terminology, and I want to kind of reap the life out of James and show you that he's being encouraging, and really showing you to get out of your works of self righteousness and of Christian ideology and all these other things. So I want to get started. First off, I want to encourage you. There is no other you. God created you just as you are. Do not condemn yourself. Do not compare yourself to other people, because by doing so, it's stupid, because you're not made for what they're made for, and they're just comparing themselves to other people, trying to conform to them too. So everybody's lost, but everybody's trying to follow each other. It just makes no sense. There is no good Christian. None. There is the golden image that we've set up, and we've been convinced that we're supposed to look like as Christians, but it's false. And anyway, so let's get into James, and let's try to unravel some of the lies we've believed. Okay. The very first one I want to start with is that 1:2. My brethren, count it all joy when you fall into diverse temptations, knowing this, that the trying of your faith works patience. But let patience have her perfect work, that you may be perfect and entire, wanting in nothing. And this is the goal. Keep that in mind. To be perfect and entire and wanting in nothing. Because from this place, Satan cannot tempt you with your lusts. He cannot tempt you away. You cannot tempt yourself away, because you have no need. Christ is your sufficiency. Okay, this is the goal. And he's starting out the whole book off this. So kind of keep that in mind as we read everything else. Okay, tie it back into this. But he says right here, count it all joy when you fall into temptations. Well, we as Christians, we're taught to tiptoe around sin and be, very vigilant not to fail and fall back and backslide and all these things. Well, that's not how my walk has been. My walk has been basically jumping in and figuring this all out. And that's kind of like what's going on, is that what he's trying to encourage you to do is to get outside of convention. Don't be afraid to stumble and fall. You've got to let God guide you. And how can you do that if you're staying inside the fences of convention? When you're still trying to conform to, and everybody else is lost, and you're still trying to, we keep going in these circles that don't work. That people, nobody's overcoming. Nobody's satisfied. Nobody's winning over here. We need to get outside of convention and be willing to walk in faith with God and let him direct us and guide us, to believe that he is here and present. Okay? Again, let's move on to 5. If any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God, that gives to all men liberally and upbraids not, he doesn't withhold, and it shall be given him. But let him ask in faith, nothing wavering. For he that wavers is like a wave of the sea, driven with the wind and tossed. For let not that man think he shall receive anything of the Lord. A double-minded man is unstable in all of his ways. And this right here catches up a lot of people if they're still dominated by sin and condemnation. Because they're going to immediately focus in on this place that says, oh, am I wavering? And it says, oh my God. It says, if I'm wavering at all, let that man not think of anything of the Lord. And am I a double-minded man? I mean, went through this. Everyone has gone through this. They read this portion and they apply it to themselves and see it in the negative. And not the other side of things, which is saying that Christ has victory. Put your trust in God. If you're putting your trust in God and yourself, you are a double-minded man. So you've got to count it all joy when you fall into temptations. Let patience have her perfect work, that you may be perfect and entire, lacking in nothing. So this is not accusing you. This is saying, keep your mind on Christ. This is where your victory is. So he says, blessed is the man that endures temptation, for when he is tried, he shall receive the crown of life, which the Lord has promised to them that love him. So quit looking at your circumstances and thinking you failed. Endure through them. There's no trial that all men are going through. You guys, you're fine. You're going to fail. You're going to stumble. Guess what? Watch a little kid. Whenever they start trying to walk, they eat shit way more times than they succeed. But eventually they're going to be walking. Kind of use that as an idea, like a picture for what God is wanting you to do, is learn how to walk for the first time. Get outside without your crutches, being the church. Okay? You guys really, we got to live and try what he has said. You can't just sit inside the walls of convention. Okay. Let no man say when he is tempted, I am tempted of God, for God cannot be tempted with evil, neither does he tempt any man. But every man is tempted when he is drawn away of his own lust and enticed. And then when lust has conceived, it brings forth sin, and sin, when it is finished, it brings forth death. Okay, I want to just, right here, this says we're drawn away of his own lust. Well, if you're perfect and entire and lacking in nothing, you don't have any, the lust can't touch you anymore. Okay? So out of the whole thing, that's what I want you to kind of focus on right there. And then 18, of his own will, he says he begat us with a word of truth, that we should be kind of first fruits of his creatures. So again, of his own will did he beget us. That means that you were of Adam, now you're of Christ, through the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus, because you were identified with him whenever he became of the virgin birth. So folks, he begat us for his own purposes, for his own will. It wasn't because you wanted to be a Christian. It was, you didn't even know what you wanted to do. Even now, you don't even know what a Christian is, or what you are supposed to be. Let's put it that way. That we should be kind of the first fruits of his creatures. And looking around, and you don't see all the other creatures receiving what we've received. And that's kind of interesting. But it says we're the first fruits. I mean, I'll let you guys wonder about that yourself for now. Maybe we can talk about that in another video later. Anyway, he says, in 22, he says, but be doers of the word and not hearers only, deceiving your own selves. For if any be a hearer of the word and not a doer, he is like unto a man beholding his natural face in a glass. For he beholds himself, and he goes his way, and straightway forgets what manner of man he was. But whosoever looks into the perfect law of liberty and continues therein, he being not a forgetful hearer, but a doer of the work, this man shall be blessed in his deed. You're not double-minded. But I want to look at this. This is what self-righteous people do. So that you come into Christ and you acknowledge you're a sinner. So you've looked in the mirror and you see you're completely incapable. You're worthless. You have nothing to offer before God as payment at all. You have nothing for God. Okay? Well, then you turn right back around and you go out trying to be a good Christian again. You start trying to live up to the Christian ideals and expectations, not realizing that you can't, not remembering that you can't. You saw yourself that you couldn't, yet you go right back out and then you try again. Well, those that are of the law of liberty, freedom, they look in the mirror and they remember they can't do anything. So where do they have to put all their dependence? They have to put their dependence on Christ. And these people are not unstable anymore because they're all on Christ. This is where you need to be. James is so encouraging about this. Everything is about this. Let's go down to 2:9. He says, but if you have respect of persons, you commit sin and are convinced of the law as transgressors. Whoever shall keep the whole law and yet offend in one point, he is guilty of all. This is very important because if you're still, so like you've seen yourself in the mirror, you've already forgot what you look like, and you're going about trying to establish your own righteousness, trying to be self-righteous, trying to be a good Christian, trying to be a guide to the lost. But what he's saying is that now what is your conscience being underneath? Since you have respect of persons, you can acknowledge there's some people more holy, less holy, more good, less bad. You have an ascension of this ideology of that there's levels of people. Well, you're not saying this consciously, but subconsciously this is your belief. But now at this point is that if you're so perfect and a good Christian, you fail in one, you failed it all. And this is what your conscience is going to bear. So what happens is because your conscience is condemned, you're not going to walk in the law of liberty. You're still trying to do your own works, and you're going to die. And then 12, so speak ye, and so do you, as they that shall be judged of the law of liberty. If you're under the law of liberty, you don't have any reason to hide. There's nothing there. Christ has paid for everything. You are begat of his own will. He did this for you because of his own will and by his own strength. He's already done it. You have no capability. I can't just drill this into you enough. So then you have to, so speak you and so do as they that will be judged of the law of liberty. So you can just say what you mean and mean what you say, because you don't have to pretend. You don't have to appear righteous before men. And then I want to go down here. It says, yes, even so faith, if it has not works, is dead being alone. And this is the one where it nails people. People get, if somebody's condemned already, this gets them even, it gets them working. A man may say, you have faith and I have works. Show me thy faith without thy works, and I will show you my faith by my works. You believe there is one God, you do well. The devils also believe and tremble. It sounds like he's today. But wilt thou know, O vain man, that faith without works is dead? Was not Abraham our father justified by works when he had offered Isaac upon his son upon the altar? Seest thou how faith wrought with his works, and by works was faith made perfect? And the scripture was fulfilled, which said, Abraham believed God, and it was imputed for him for righteousness, and he was called the friend of God. You see then how that by works a man is justified, not by faith only. Likewise also was not Rahab the harlot justified by works when she had received the messengers and had sent them out another way? For as the body without the spirit is dead, so faith without works is dead also. Okay, this is really important, because they weren't doing good Christian works and doing good Christian deeds. They believed God, and their works showed that they believed God. Does that make sense? So Abraham was going to sacrifice Isaac, but we have other word in scriptures that says that he knew, or he believed, that God was able to raise him from the dead, because the seed came through Isaac, and God had already made that promise. Rahab, she saw the greatness and the glory of God and knew that they were screwed, and so she helped the Israelites. But it just means that she believed God, and her works showed that she believed God. Well, today, how do your works show that you believe God? If you're still going out and condemning yourself and still trying to live as like a sinner does, which means not going out and doing bad things, but trying to cover your own self with your own righteousness, how have you honored God? How do your works show that you believe God? So God has defeated sin, death, and hell. Satan's defeated. Everything's been done. The whole world's been put under your feet. You have all the righteousness of Jesus right now. Do you believe God? Or do you believe Satan and his accusation that still says you're a sinner? Do you still consider yourself a sinner or a saint? Well, I'm going to leave it right there, because that's enough to kind of challenge that thinking. I want you guys to know that James is not condemning you and telling you to go out and do Christian works, or to not cuss or burp or fart. That's not what he's talking about. To bridle your tongue means to bring it captive to Christ. That everything that you do is you're bringing glory to Christ. You're not going. Anyway, you guys can see what I'm saying. You want to be free. You want to be free to do what God has commissioned you to do. You can't do that as long as you're trying to pretend to be something you're not. It just doesn't work. Let's finish up with this. He says, but the tongue can no man tame. It is an unruly evil, full of deadly poison. Therewith we bless God, even the Father, and therewith we curse men. Which are made after the similitude of God, which is great, because that whole begat thing is now that you're after the similitude of God, because we were created after the similitude of God, but we forfeited that by our own self-righteousness, covered ourselves and produced the image of the lie, which was not of the similitude of God. But now, because Christ died, buried, and rose again, we have been made in the image of God again, begat. So then it's like, okay, so then we're going around, we bless God, but we curse men. But to curse men, what are we saying? Is that they're falling short, that they're failing. I'm about to run out of time, you guys. So anyway, hopefully we can do another talk about this later. But this should be enough to kind of get you to kind of look at this a little differently and see whether or not I'm telling the truth. Okay, God loves you guys. You have nothing to be ashamed of. Get up and walk as if you were Christ. All right? I love you all. Have a great day.